Hey, what's going on, everybody, man? Welcome to another episode of Historically Black Sense, the premier digital platform of all things HBCU and D9 organization related, man. And today we have a very, very special guest on, a guy who I saw pop up on the scene lately, and I'm seeing, man, he is definitely causing some good disturbance in this entertainment industry, man. So let me get to it, man, Mr. The Vairrun Strickland.
Varriun,
Man,
yes. How y'all doing? How's everybody?
Vairrun Strickland. Vairrun Strickland. uh, Alabama A&M alum, majored in urban planning with a minor in communications. Member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. The owner of, am I saying Vegancy? Is it Vegancy? Or Vegancy Properties? Vegancy Properties.
Yeah.
Okay, Vegancy Properties in Chicago. A former firefighter. Member of UNIA in African League Division 401 Chicago, and he is currently on After Happily Ever After on BET and Lost Resort on TBS, man. Thank you for sitting down with me, brother.
No problem, no problem. Happy to be here.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So, I'm going to get into it first with the HBCU. Now, on a light note, I will say now, I came from Alabama State University.
Okay.
And we have a little rivalry that's going on.
Yeah.
We got a little rivalry going on. So, for bragging rights purposes, I'm gonna say we did say the Magic City Classic.
You did. Took a while, but y'all did it.
Hey, it took a while, but we did it. We definitely did it. But now you know what? It's all love and respect to Alabama A&M as well. So, Alabama A&M. At what point did you decide you wanted to go to Alabama A&M, or what made you want to go there in the first place? Or have you always wanted to attend Alabama A&M?
Coming up in Chicago, West Inglewood, I really didn't know too much about HBCUs. I mean, the most that the taste that I've got of HBCUs came from Spike Lee's movie School Days. I have an aunt that's not too much older than I am, and that was one of her good movies. When I was exposed to that movie, it was just really entertainment to me. It was like, okay, this is school after school. I was at the time kind of just worried about high school at the time. And what ended up happening here in Chicago, I went on a college tour my junior year. I can't remember the name of the church, but there was a church that was hosting it, Pastor Jeremiah Wright's church here in Chicago. He's the pastor who, when Barack Obama was running for president, he had the skit that said, "Goddamn America" and all of that, and Obama had to leave the church and all that. But his church is really popular here in Chicago. I wasn't necessarily a member, but I had an aunt who was a member, and I think she might have pitched the idea to my mom to send me on this college tour that they have every year for high school students. So my junior year, I went on their HBCU tour and was just exposed to it was my eye opener to a whole new world. You know what I mean? I knew that I would probably go to college after high school, but even by junior year, I had no thought of where I would go, what I would do, or even what I wanted to be. So I went on that college tour, and I mean, I was exposed to over 20 colleges in the South in a short period of time. And I went, Alabama A&M was one of the colleges that I attended on this HBCU tour. I went with the idea of I'm not sure where I'm going to when I came back home after the tour, hey, I'm going down south somewhere for school. So that's how it started for me.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's crazy because a lot of people, most people who I encounter from, I guess, Chicago and people from up north, they are like, nah, man, the South is way too slow. I'm not going to a school in the South. I'm not, it's just, we're going to call it country, so to speak. So, that was really, it's really kind of intriguing to me to hear people's story on why they would choose the school down South. Further, even, better than that, an HBCU, being from Chicago, being from the North. So that's a very interesting story. So
Yeah, I think it's the lack of exposure. The lack of
absolutely.
exposure. So even now, I'm the oldest of four. And I just made sure that my mom was proactive with my siblings of, hey, look, show them the tour, take them on the tour so they can at least see it. I know a lot of the kids, a lot of the youth here, like what you're saying about people saying, oh, well, it's too country, it's too slow. Where my school is located in Huntsville, Alabama, which is the northern part of Alabama, is a city in itself, and it's growing, it's huge, and it's not that slow, to be honest with you. I just think it's just one of them things that's hearsay. We are here born up north, and we think that anything below Indiana is country and slow or just not on the level as a big city like Chicago. And it's like one of the biggest misconceptions that I think the Black community here in Chicago has.
It is definitely a misconception.
Yeah.
Even just speaking about Alabama, I won't say Alabama in general, because outside of Mobile, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Huntsville, the conceptions may be pretty true. Anything that anyone think about it, yeah, the perception is definitely true. But when you talk about Huntsville, a growing city, when you talk about Montgomery, a growing city, when you talk about Birmingham, the capital of Alabama, it's totally different than what people normally think about Alabama, or just I'm saying Alabama because that's what we're talking about right now,
Or
and
just
it's
the
just a
South
total,
period. Places like
or just
Atlanta.
the South period.
Places like Atlanta, places like New Orleans, Texas, you know what I mean? There's, Tennessee. These are places who
Exactly.
have big cities that move fast also, So, of course, when you talk about certain parts in Alabama, I think there's certain parts in all of the southern states that are a little slower. But I'm talking about the main cities that these HBCUs are located. It's a huge misconception of it's going to be too slow for you. It's actually life sped up once I got on here.
Absolutely. Hey, but HBCUs, man, those campuses within themselves can be pretty fast, especially when you're talking about you coming out of high school. College is definitely a big jump anyway. So it's gonna be pretty fast for any individual jumping out of high school to college, and we're talking about an HBCU, which is in my opinion, a whole nother level than people probably
A
would
whole other
can
life.
even imagine.
You're stuff in a short lifetime inside of 4 to 5 years. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
I think people understand that. It actually speeds up. It's not necessarily saying you have to move there, but if you're going to go to school there, life is going to speed up and teach you something.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you majored in urban planning with a
Uh-huh.
minor in communications.
I did.
Urban planning. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
So urban planning to me, actually, I started out my major in telecommunication, which was geared more towards broadcasting. Okay, I didn't have too much guidance when I came to A&M of like, and I have a whole different perspective of that now, but of what I wanted to do, I think more or less coming from up north, we can be a little materialistic. It's like, okay, I want to go somewhere and I want to get a education in something where I can make some money. You know what I mean? I was thinking money, money, money. Whereas to my perspective has changed and it's more or less peace of mind and happiness. You know what I'm saying? So I went in this new world called college, and said, okay, let me get a major that's going to make some money. I tried telecommunication, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to make too much money doing that. I had a couple of friends that was in the urban planning department who was telling me a little bit about it. And basically, it's, city planning. Urban planning is one who comes to an area and their city government and say, hey, you know what? We need to put malls right here. We need to put subdivisions, houses right. He's the one that makes a 20-year comprehensive plan for a certain area, which sounded interesting to me. And then me coming from Chicago saying, well, there's a lot of development here in Chicago. What I did not know is how competitive and political that being an urban planner is. You know what I mean? And in Chicago, it's a place where you got to pay to play. You got to know somebody. So, I mean, it's not that easy to break in the door of urban planning in Chicago. So, and then by the time I graduated, which was around 2005, we had the recession and, the job market was horrible. It was horrible. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting into urban planning.
Hey, you know it's crazy that something can look so good on paper. And
Yeah,
once you get into it, they never tell you about the politics behind it. They never tell you. I mean, we've all heard about networking. You know, we know that networking is key with a lot of things, but it's
correct.
crazy because they never tell us about that part of it. We see what's on paper. Oh man, this can make a lot of money. This can, whoa, I can be. Oh,
Right.
okay, I'm coming out of college. I'm about to have a great job,
And
in
they
which
push
we
that
all know how they work.
narrative. Usually the school
Yeah.
push that narrative. Oh yeah, you're gonna make a lot of money doing this, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
But you know, when I was reading your bio, that stood out to me because I was like, urban planning. I haven't come across anyone that had that major before.
yeah.
Um, so I think it was very interesting. So as of right now, are you currently using that degree?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of crazy. I did an intern when I came home, like my junior year, with the Metropolitan Planning Council here in Chicago, and the big wake up call for me about urban planning. And I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I have friends who stayed in that major, graduated, and they are working in their field. Not necessarily here in Chicago, but other places, DC. Yeah, different places. So I'm not messing on it at all. I think some people just really stuck with it. It was just rough here in Chicago. Here in Chicago, at the Metropolitan Planning Council, it was funny. I was interning, and the head of urban planning department was a lady that was in her early 60s. And I must have asked her what her degree was. What did she have a degree of in college? And it was creative writing, meaning she specialized in writing fiction books. But she
Wow.
had the urban planning department under her belt. And that was the thought in my mind of, okay, she knows somebody because how is it you write fiction books, but you're the head of the urban planning department, and I'm showing up with old projects, reports that I've done, and she wants to copy them and put them in their archive and stuff like that, and I'm just looking like, okay, so this woman knows nothing about urban planning at all. And that was my wake up call that, hey, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. You know,
Man.
and it was kind of disheartening. I have to say that.
Yeah, I can know. I can understand that, man. Oh, you spend all of your time
Uh-huh.
studying this, urban planning, going to college in this major, working hard, doing what
Yeah.
you do to try to get out here and make it happen, and then all of a sudden you finally get in this door, and this lady is something totally different, and probably don't even know how to spell urban planning. But look, but no, man, that's just a funny story though. And I always find funny stories about people when I ask them about their majors. It's
Yeah.
always something that's funny, and there's something that I find very interesting about even doing these interviews because it's things
Uh-huh.
that you would never guess. So, anyway, definitely shout out to urban planning. Still, a lot of money can still be made, as you said,
Yeah. Yeah. I
but
mean, it just wasn't for
networking,
me. It just wasn't for
absolutely.
me. But like I said, it was an eye opener. I think that me being the oldest of four, I was supposed to go through that journey to try to teach people up under me. Um, if people say stuff like, "Hey, what would you have told your freshman year self or your senior year self in high school?" And I would say, Varun, don't worry about money. Do what you love. Do what makes you happy. Find something that makes you. I don't care if it's basket weaving. You
Yeah.
know, if you like to basket weave, then find a school and a major in basket weaving and run with it. Because, like I said, I think it's more of, instead of about money, it's more about peace of mind and happiness for me when it comes to what I do. And it took me to go to college and to go through that and go through a couple of different careers in order to be where I'm at today, is something that I love to do.
That's very interesting, man. And
Yeah.
you said something that makes a lot of sense. A lot of times I've found that, even and being that we're talking about college right now, we'll come out and we all know, and I call it the American dream. I've said it
Yeah.
before, is to go to college. Graduate, go to college. Well, graduate high school, go to college, get you a good job.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that you are, you're trying to chase this money because a lot of people getting this quote unquote good job, and
Uh-huh.
they're paying back. all of the student loans that they owe, and they're paying
Oh yeah.
back so many things. So you find yourself chasing money, and you're not even happy, and you feel like, why did I even go and get this degree, man? But like you said, it's who you know it. Degrees are great. Don't get me wrong, degrees are great.
Oh yeah.
It's very funny what you said, man, about the urban planning. You walk in and this lady knows
Right.
knows nothing
Right.
about it. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Now, I will say Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated is something that I am very, very, very connected to.
Okay. Okay.
So earlier I said I appreciate you for sitting down with me and talking to me, but now I'm gonna say I appreciate you for sitting down and talking to me, Fred. All right.
Okay. Okay, frat brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. How did that come about for you? And I always ask this question. And when I first started asking this question, I thought that people would give me cliche answers. But
Okay.
did you choose Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, or did Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated choose you?
I will say honestly a little bit of both. You know, as my journey with entering Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated was somewhat like my journey of picking a major and coming to Alabama A&M, to be honest with you. I was never exposed to Greek life. I don't remember being exposed to Greek life when I was younger. I tell people this all the time that I'm not saying that it's not taken serious up north, but down south, people
It's totally different.
live and breathe Greek life. You know what I mean? And, you know, I noticed that a lot of my friends who are from the South were exposed to that either through family or they had like little programs in their high school that more or
Yes.
less groomed them for Greek life.
Yeah.
Now, at my first high school that I went to, because I went to one high school freshman year and then I transferred, but the first one that I went to, they had something similar. There was like two fraternities there, but you know, it wasn't anything big. You know what I mean? I didn't grow up with uncles who were Sigmas, you know, Qs, Alphas, or anything like that. And to be honest with you, I really don't remember even in my childhood being raised in West Inglewood, Chicago, seeing frat jackets or anything like that. When I first got to Alabama A&M was when I was really first introduced to anything Greek. You know, no. Actually, this is a funny story. First time that I could remember seeing anything Greek, and you could tell that I was super green, was on that same college tour that I told you about that I had junior year, right? We went to Grambling State, right?
Okay.
We happened to go during their Greek week. Okay, so everybody is on their yard, dressed up in their attire and different things like that on their stones. Now I'm out here in a bright orange church shirt, you know, because I put church, right?
Okay.
And in Chicago, we feel we're kind of groomed to believe if we, wherever we go, you know, because we were raised in Chicago, we could live anywhere. We could hold our own anywhere solo. You know what I'm saying? We have that cockiness about us. So you imagine this little skinny kid, junior year. I'm on this campus and I'm seeing all this stuff. Everybody's taller than me. You know, we're hearing the screaming, the clapping, the go frat, go soror, whatever. And I'm like, man, I can't see nothing. So I walks up on the Q stone. Now the Qs are like lined up on their stone. I walk up on the Q stone, step on their stone. Now I'm behind these guys. I literally put my hands on maybe like two of their shoulders, like, what's going on here? You know, like,
Oh man.
now look, it's funny now because at the time I wasn't Greek. I didn't know what I was doing or anything like that. I'm completely innocent. And I got to give a shout out to the Qs at Grambling State because if they didn't snap, they didn't go off. It was more or less like a scene out of a movie where they feel this hand on their shoulder and then they look down like, and they see this little kid trying to jump up and see. And they politely told me, you know, little man, you can't stand on this stone. It's restricted, you know, for other people other than our fraternity to be on this stone. And they were actually gentlemen about it. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like my first exposure to like something kind of hardcore Greek.
You know what, man? Well, whoever those, I forgot the chapter name, but the Q's at Grambling, man. Shout out
Yeah.
to them for that. First off, for
Yeah, yeah.
handling
I mean, the way
it
that
in
they
that
handled the
manner.
situation, they looked down, they saw this skinny kid with
This
this
other
church
kid,
shirt
yeah,
on,
yeah. Like, what
and
you gonna
they
do to a
knew
little
they
kid?
they like, oh, this is tour season, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? We gonna give them a pass, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
they were straight gentlemen about it. They led me right on my way off of that stone. Once I got to A&M, was like my big exposure to it freshman year. Typically at the school that I went to, people pledge their sophomore year. Freshman year, never really thought about it. Sophomore year, I'm in a dorm, and now all of my friends are talking about it. And it's like the talk of, the second floor of Foster Complex. And most of my friends, their mind was already made up. Their mind was already made up. So what I ended up doing was my sophomore year, I went to a couple of different smokers just to find out what it was about, what so-and-so was about, what this was about or whatever, And after doing that, realized that sophomore year, I wasn't ready. I really didn't understand what it was about or had something picked out that I wanted to do. So that summer, when I was coming in as a junior, that summer, I actually did research and talked to people that were Greek once I got home. When I got back, it was kind of a split. I had some of my friends had pledged KA Psi, and then some of my friends had pledged Phi Beta Sigma. I got back. I had done my research on everybody and kind of had in my mind what I wanted to do. I can't honestly say that it was made up if I was going to be Greek, but it was one of them things where if I was going to be Greek, I knew which one I wanted to be a part of. So I came back junior year, and everything just kind of fell into place. My friends who were Sigmas, and one of them in particular that we're tied to this day, his name is Langston Carr, out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Just embraced me, took me around people who would later on become my older brothers, and everybody just embraced me. I wasn't Greek, and it felt like I was a brother. It felt like family, So, and this was as soon as I got back on campus junior year, and it was almost just like organic, like a given. Okay, well, we're about to have a line. It was more or less like I was told, we're about to have a line, and you're going to be on it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I think it's safe to say
I had chosen that chapter. I had chosen the fraternity, but the fraternity also chose me.
Yeah. I was gonna say it sounds like they chose you and you just accepted it, and you was like, you know what? Well, hey, y'all kind of welcomed me in or lured me in, but we won't go into that.
Right. And I had been leaning toward that anyway. You know what I mean? Us being a part of the inclusive, us being part of the campus instead of separated. That's what I love. That's what stood out to me about our fraternity is the connections that we built with regular GDIs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before I switch gears,
I have what that means. Just regular students.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Please clear it up for the audience out here. But yeah, hey, we definitely got to shout out, man. We gonna, hey, man, Blue Five, man, Blue Five. Before we switch gears, gotta say it. Absolutely. All right, so I want to get into this first. A former firefighter.
Yes.
How did that come about? And as I was reading your bio, I'm like, okay, well, I'm seeing everything that he did. I see the major. I see what you're an owner of, everything that you're a part of, and I see what you're doing now. So it says firefighter. I said, okay, that's dope. And I go on to read, and it says 13 years.
Yes.
How? I mean, how did you become a firefighter? I guess after even having that, did you become a firefighter right after high school? I mean, right after college, or what happened?
It was shortly after college. I graduated in 2005. I became a firefighter in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was pretty much maybe a year and a half after college, something like that.
Okay, so to be a firefighter for 13 years, I don't want to assume that you liked it because some people go to work every day and they completely hate it. But did you like it?
Yeah, listen, I loved the fire service. I loved.
Wow.
I mean, I worked for a city right outside of Chicago that's predominantly Black, and you know how we are, especially with our community service and our fraternity. I felt honored to be a part of to be a public servant serving my community. You know what I mean? So, but what I've learned, even with, like how you say how, I can only tell you how it happened. I can't explain why. You know what I'm saying? Everything that's happened in my life, to be honest with you, I honestly feel like it's been the ancestors and it's been the supreme being that's led me there. It had no doing of mine. I mean, it was just more or less like I was showed the way, showed the path, and I walked it. And that's how it was when I became a firefighter. I got home. Remember, I told you that it was very political and the job market was horrible. I think Bush had just got in office around that time, and the job market in Chicago was just shot. And I needed a job. I had a mortgage. I had just got a condo in Chicago, and I needed a job. And I had a good friend of mine. His name was Antoine Price. Grew up with him in West Inglewood, Chicago. His grandmother stayed down the street from my grandmother. He was one of my best friends. Unfortunately, he was killed in 2013. He gives me a call one day because we hung out. I'm still a party guy after leaving a party school, so we partied all the time, hung out, and he said, hey, Varriun, I'm about to go and take this firefighter test for the city of Chicago. You should come with me. And I'm looking for a job anyway. I'm like, all right, come on. You know what I mean? So meet with him. We go take the firefighter test down at the McCormick place in Chicago. And I sat there and took the test. I used the whole time, and not long after that, I got a letter saying that I did pass the test. As I was leaving the test for Chicago, I got handed a slip for another test for another city, the city of Markham, right outside of Chicago or whatever. And I saw that and I said, hey, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I had an incoming call. I'm sorry about that.
You good? Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure the last thing you heard that I got a slip for a test from Markham.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on the road. I said, hey, I took this test. Let me go ahead and take this test in a couple of days. I took that test, and now it's just a waiting game. You take a test for a fire department, and then you get on a waiting list if you pass the test. So maybe like a year and a half later is when I got the call that I was that I was awarded the job for Markham firefighter that's right outside of Chicago. I started the academy. That took maybe 3 months, and the rest is history. That's how I became a firefighter.
Wow. That's interesting. Did you find that job? I mean, I'm pretty sure having a job like that, I feel like 13 years, that's actually a career. Really. I feel like that job that job or career field can be very rewarding, as well as I feel like you have to kind of have you have to be strong mentally, because I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you saw as well that a lot of people may not be able to handle.
Well, in my opinion, a lot of people, this is something that I've learned just by being in the fire service. I really don't think that there's a such thing as strong mentally. I think that everybody kind of have the same, well, somewhat around the same mental capacity. And it's about if you have the tools and you have everything to keep your mental capacity where it should be. I came into the fire service and I wasn't really taught too much about mental health and about PTSD and things that I was going to see. They briefly tell you about, hey, you're a firefighter, you are going to see some things that most of the world aren't privy to. You're going to see a lot of death. You're going to see a lot of gruesome things. You're going to be open to basically see people on the worst day of their life. And they don't prepare you for how that changes you over time. And my journey as a firefighter is actually what led me to take mental health seriously. So, and okay. If I had not been a part of the fire service, I probably would have never talked to a therapist. Because it's just not. It was never in my culture. It was never in my family that, hey, I need to go debrief. I need to go talk to a therapist and unpack some things, some trauma. Not knowing that I was not probably, but traumatized before I even got in the fire service from being a black man, a black kid from West Inglewood, Chicago in the 80s,
Yeah. A lot of times that we hear it all the time now being that people have, we've brought mental health to the forefront of things. We hear it a lot that we thought that, hey, man, going to talk to a therapist, we feel like, especially as a man, like that's a sign of the weak, but it's really not. And it's one of those things that I'm glad that that you were able to realize it from being a firefighter, and you went ahead and you got to it, and you are a mental health advocate. So I feel like that's a great thing. But anyway, nevertheless, man, shout out to you and your 13 years.
There's nothing weak about it. It actually takes a strong man to recognize that he has a problem and to go see a doctor about that. That's strength in itself, to recognize that you have a problem and to actually do something about it. Instead of things that we like to do. We like to self-medicate. We like to, not deal with our mental health issues, and it spills over into our family. It spills over into our kids and our relatives and people that we love. It takes a strong man to actually pull his own coattail and say, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. So I try to tell people all the time, there's nothing weak about it because it's not easy,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Shout out to that 13 years, man. That's definitely a milestone within itself as well.
Dealing with, in the fire service, I saw a lot of death. I've had to do chest compressions on kids that look like me, that resemble me. I've seen, anything from burn victims to gunshot victims, accidents, things like this. These things wear and tear on you after a while, and they cause PTSD, and all type of stuff. And another element that is a whole nother beast is the racism within the fire service. I think a lot of people aren't privy to that. Policemen usually catch the end of that because, they have police power, they carry guns, and they also arrest people. Firemen typically fly under the radar when it comes to that. You kind of hear about the racism in the department, but you don't hear about it like in other departments. I think maybe 9/11 has something to do with it. Everybody loves a firefighter after 9/11. But I try to tell people this all the time, not to, put a dark cloud over the department or anything like that, over anybody's fire department. But racism is an issue, and it does need to be cleaned up. When you think about the history of the fire department, it's not that different than the history from the police department. It's just one of those things, and having to deal with that on top of waking up at 4 a.m. and have to run into a burning building, it wears and tear on you. After a while.
I can definitely believe that, man. Like I said, it's something that you can't answer the how, man. It's definitely something for everyone, and everyone is built for something, that they're built custom for. And I feel like that was definitely one of your things, man. So definitely, once again, shout out to that 13
And
years.
actually, our people. I say sometimes our people can be a little bit forgetful.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to things that's happened to us. And like I said, not to put a dark cloud over the police, over the fire department, but policemen catch a lot of that. The
Yeah,
backlash from the public and different things like that. And I don't think people are aware of what some of these Black firemen are going through in these departments, especially early on when they first get there, in some of these towns that are predominantly white. I tell people all the time, hey, look, when you look at those old videos during the Jim Crow time and during the civil rights movement, who's spraying people with water? Firemen.
yeah, firemen.
You know what I'm
Right,
saying? We
right.
forget stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And what ended
yeah.
up happening that changed it a little bit is when brothers started joining the fire service. So now
Mm.
a little bit of less of making that old Black woman walk to the ambulance instead of you all picking her up. When you show up to that house and it's a Black person's house on fire, you put that fire out instead of letting it burn. You know what I mean? That's when it started to change. And, I just want to say, with that, here in Chicago, they do a lot of hiring for the police department. And like our culture is like to just stay away from police. We have young Black kids who want to grow up and be police officers, but their parents are telling them, no, I don't want you to do that. Or when they're old enough to
Mm.
do it, or the mom is saying, oh, it's too dangerous. I don't want my baby being a policeman. But
Yeah,
this is how you change things. You get in it and you make change.
yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying?
Absolutely,
If you're complaining
absolutely.
about the police department and your kid wants to be a police, and your kid is morally rich, then your kid is going to be a benefit to the police department.
A big benefit of that. So
Exactly.
yeah, man, it's a lot. That once again, that's why we have this platform, because a lot of things that you just said, a lot of people don't think about. A lot of things that you just
Yeah.
taught me that I haven't even thought about, man. So
Oh
hey,
yeah.
I definitely appreciate that tidbit. So I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move along a little bit. The owner of Legacy Properties in Chicago.
Okay.
Please tell us a little bit about that. I did my research on it. I read the bio, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm seeing what it says. I don't know if it's self-explanatory or not. So, I always let people who are in it, and you just happen to be the owner of it, I let people explain it themselves because they can explain it way better than I can. So, talk to us a little bit about that.
So growing up, my mother's always been in real estate. I just remember being a kid and going to her boring closings, which these these are the closings that paid the bills and put me through college and different things like that. And I really never had an interest in actually being a real estate salesperson like my mom. Um, my mother is a sales woman. I mean, she can sell water to a well. She has the gift to gab. She has that better than I have. You know what I mean? And I've actually for years watched this woman sell a house like that. Everybody in our neighborhood who got some money, who came into some money and wanted to buy some land, more than likely my mother sold it to them. But I never really had too much interest in that. It just maybe it got a bad taste in my mouth because I was young going on all of these closings, Um, but I ended up transitioning. Things kind of boiled over between myself and the administration of my fire department, and I had to make a way and find something else to do that I enjoyed doing. And it's not that I didn't enjoy being a fireman, but it's just one of them things that I kind of wanted to be a little more carefree. I didn't want to boss over my shoulder. I had to kind of get used to trying to attack this entrepreneur life. So um, what ended up happening was I bought a house maybe around 2016 or something like that. I bought a house and I still had my condo. And had a tenant in it once the tenant's lease was up, I had this idea of trying the Airbnb market, the home sharing market, and I'm like, we also had the coronavirus hit, the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, home sharing exploded because people didn't want to be in hotels. So I had this idea that, hey, you know what? I'm going to attack this market of home sharing, and I've turned my condo into an Airbnb and was able to make 3 times the profit or more sometimes off of just being an Airbnb host than I would make during a long term, having a long term tenant or doing a long term rental. So my whole thing is short-term rentals now is the home sharing market. And that's how Legacy Properties was born. That's why, the properties that I own and that I manage are under Legacy Properties.
Dope. Hey, now if I come to Chicago, I'm hitting you up. I'm working. Hey, I'm gonna spend my money. I'm gonna spend my money with you.
And you'll get the best, one of the best Airbnbs in Chicago.
There we go. See, and that's what it's all about. That connection, man. That's what it's about right there. Now, there's definitely a jump, and there's definitely, I guess, forward thinking and thinking quick on your feet because you had to figure something out, and you're like, all right, well, what do I already kind of have access to, and what can I do? Oh, I have a house and I have my condo. I already have access to that, so let's turn that into some income. That's great, man. That's dope. So we're gonna move down the line a little bit. Like I said, I still want to be respectful of your time as well. So I want to get to. I don't want to combine these, but I'm going to tell you what both of them are. We're going to go to BET's After Happily Ever After and CBS's The Lost Resort. Okay. After Happily Ever After. I actually caught a couple of episodes of it. How in the world did you end up getting on that show, Fred? Like what After Happily Ever After. First of all, the title was interesting to me. Okay. After Happily Ever After. I said, okay, so that means some people that have been into some, they've been happily ever after, but it's an after that. So how did you end up on it? What happened? Talk to me.
So After Happily Ever After was actually the second show that I premiered on, that was a part of. And I think, honestly, I was able to get that opportunity for 2 reasons. I had built relationships with TV producers or whatever, so my name was out there a little bit. And then this particular show is about 7 ex-married couples who are looking for love for one another or one of them, and they have to choose out of a pool of singles. Now, my position, I'm in the pool of singles to choose from. I'm 40, I don't have kids, I'm not married, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like a super single bachelor, you know what I mean? So I kind of fit the criteria for the show. And, through some of the things that I liked to do when I was younger, like my bio says, I was a huge fan of Eddie Murphy. So I was always into like watching movies, being on TV, production and things like that. And, even along the way, when I was in the fire department, I premiered on a couple of shows, Chicago Fire and different things like that. So that kind of gave me a taste of the production life. I think I was able to stand out in the game because, back in 2013, during my reign as a firefighter, I also started competing in bodybuilding and men's physique photography. So with just being fascinated with modeling and being fascinated with TV production, it just put me around the right people. My pictures, my headshots, my body shots and everything got to the right people, and I was afforded the opportunity to first be on Lost Resort. So it actually came from Lost Resort, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I didn't want to combine them, but they do connect. So
they do kind of connect. They do. They're only 2 years apart. Lost Resort was shot in 2019, premiered in 2020, and After Happily Ever After was shot this year and premiered this year. So
a lot of times when people do shows like that, they do it and it's like, you know what? I want to go get this quick check, man. I want the relevancy of it. I want the, whatever I'm gonna get, whatever I'm gonna get from it.
Okay.
However, have you learned any lessons, like any valuable lessons from actually being on those shows?
I have. My experience with reality TV has been, I would say, I think it's been a little different than most.
Hmm.
A lot of people say that reality TV is mostly about exposure, which I would agree. You know, people are trying to get their brands out there, trying to get their businesses out there, or just trying to put themselves out there. And reality TV is a really good um, way to do it. Again, Lost Resort was a little different. Lost Resort was more or less about mental health and trauma and
Yes.
holistic therapy. So I was chosen for Lost Resort because at the time I was a fireman and I had PTSD. I had been involved in an explosion, house explosion in 2017, and I had, my chief was the first time and probably the only person on my department that asked to see a doctor. That opened me up to seeing a doctor. And then out of nowhere, the opportunity came in my email. Hey, it was in the form of a questionnaire. What do you do for a living? Do you have a stressful job? Do you feel like you're at a crossroads right now? How would you feel about going away on a retreat somewhere foreign and deal with your trauma and your issues that you need to deal with through holistic therapy? And I'm checking off the boxes like, yeah, I'm a fireman. I'm this age. Oh yeah, I got PTSD. I'm stressed out all the time. Um, and it was like, hey, send in a couple of pictures along with what you do for a living, your age, where you live, blah, blah, this from. And I sent it in. And a couple of days later, I got a call for an interview. And that's how that was. As far as you asking the question, if I learned anything, you know, that was the beginning. I won't say the beginning, but that was a big part of my journey as far as mental health and, learning about yoga, learning about meditation and different things like that. Things other than just popping pills and medicating. These are, I was exposed to a whole nother mental health, natural medical world in Costa Rica, when I was exposed to people who teach you how to meditate, teach you how to do yoga, teach you how to eat right, and different things like that. So my experience with reality television has been very rewarding and different than others. And out of that came the show about love and finding love. Yeah.
All right. So my question now is, man, has your options open? I'm gonna put this on a lighter note real quick. Has your options opened up even more since you've been on this after happily ever after show? Because once they start seeing you on the show, man, hey, the women they'll come from everywhere now. So how is the DMs looking right now?
The DMs are fine. The DMs are the DMs are consistent. you know, but I love my people, man. And I don't. I can be honest and say that I know I haven't really dealt with any kind of groupie love or anything like that. It was kind of funny because I did Lost Resort in 2019, and then this year um, is when I did After Happily Ever After, and I was able to start, putting out the advertisements and pilots right before homecoming, right before this year's homecoming, right?
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing, perfect timing. And I gotta say, man, I really have to give up, props to my university, Alabama A&M University. I got to give love because they showed so much love. Me going back to school, which I go back every year for homecoming. I definitely felt the love and support from my student body and people who graduated with me or just knew of me. And then even the people who that I never really spoke to, they never really spoke to me, but we kind of recognized each other just from being there, felt compelled enough to walk up, hey man, I see what you're doing and I appreciate it. You're doing a big thing. It really showed me that my university, honors me and like really mess with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we at our school, we kind of got a huge taste of reality TV. We had 3 reality TV shows going on at one time. Myself with Lost Resort. We had Rashid with Ready to Love on the OWN network. And then we also had Marceau and his family with Love and Marriage Huntsville. So we already got this whole thing with reality TV shows at Alabama A&M. And for me to be a part of that and to be embraced by my student body, man, it was overwhelming and really in a good way. You know, I left that school knowing like, you know, like my school really mess with me. They really support me and get down with me. So
yeah. That's dope, man. That's dope. Like I say, see, I said I was gonna keep it at 30 minutes. We already at 50, and we're going to an hour because we're on the way to the hour because I have so many more questions.
I got time.
Hey, I ain't gonna hold you up like that, man. But no, you know, I definitely appreciate you for sitting down, man. And one thing that I do want to ask now is, man, I always ask this. You know, a part of me wants to ask, what would you leave people with in general? But I want to ask, being that this is historically black since we're talking about HBCUs and D9, what would you tell a person coming out of high school? And I'm gonna go even further to say, just like you, a person up north, they haven't been exposed to too many HBCUs, not Greek life, not anything dealing with it at the capacity that it is in the South. What would you leave them with? What would you tell this high school student who's on the fence between a PWI and an HBCU?
I would first tell them to do what they feel will make them happy. But I would give my advice basically saying that, hey, I would just inform them of my experience at a HBCU and what it did for me. You know, being at a school, coming out of West Inglewood, Chicago, and not seeing a whole lot of positivity, that did something to me, being able to go to Alabama and seeing people like me educating themselves and wanting to do better for themselves. And I would want them to see that. I think that's something that there's a pride that comes with seeing that. There's a self-respect that comes with seeing that. There's a fire that burns under you once you see it. You know, I'm not talking about just your uncle that's doing real good or just the guy down the street that made it and he's making a lot of money. So I'm talking about being on this campus with all of these Black people that's actually doing something to better themselves is very inspiring and something that I think that he or she, the little brother from Chicago or the little sister that's from Chicago, should consider experiencing. I love my people. It's nothing like being around my people. And I was exposed to a different category of Black people when I went to school. You know, not saying that this group was better. This group was just doing different things. You know, this group was about a different life, you know, and just explain to them just the tradition, the tradition that you are faced with, the what else? Just the exposure to good things that are in our community. You know what I mean? That usually when you come from a big city like Chicago, you're not exposed to. We're exposed to a lot of negativity here, not only just on the street, but now, you know, better than I do, it's coming through the television and it's coming through the cell phones now. And, you know, actually you're seeing positive Black men and women in 3D instead of on TV, you know.
True.
So that's what I would tell someone that's young, you know, and I would vouch and say, hey, it'll be an experience that you will never forget. And explain to them that the 5 years that I spent at Alabama A&M were the best years of my life.
Man, you sound like me. It's an experience like no other. It's one that you will never get. In my opinion, you know, everything that I say is in my opinion. I don't think that you would get it anywhere else. I don't think that you would get it at any PWI, because it's so much that I feel like HBCUs are a family. We're so close knitted and it's very intimate. It's an intimate setting, you know. So that's my thing about it.
Can you hear me? Think we got cut off. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We good. We good. No, you good. Yeah, it's definitely an intimate. It's an intimate. It's a family at the HBCU, man. People they ask me all the time, how would I sum it up? It's a family. It's intimate. Is you learn a lot. You become. You know, I feel like your instructors, man, the professors, the doctors, they really care about you. They really want you to pass. They really gonna take the extra time. You know, they liable to cut you out sometime. You never know. But yeah, man, no, I definitely appreciate you for taking the time out to sit down, man, and chat with us over here at the Historically Black Sense, man. I commend what you're doing. Just as a fellow HBCU alum, as a frat brother, keep doing it, keep climbing, man. Hey, man, hey, don't let them DMs trick you. And and I definitely appreciate it, man. You have an open seat to come sit down anytime, man.
Anytime, brother. I'm glad that you had me and was able to, add to the platform and just speak my piece on my experience about HBCUs. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
I feel blessed that I was able to have that experience. There's nothing like it. And I, to be honest with you, I don't believe that I would experience anything like it moving forward.
Hey, and I can definitely agree with. I feel the same way, man. But yeah, I appreciate it.
If they come out with a time machine, okay,
I'm going back to.
If they come out with a time machine, freshman year, drop me off.
Man, drop me off too, man. Drop me off. Now, definitely shout out to you, man. Shout out to Alabama A&M. I gotta say it because my mom, she went to A&M, man. So we were a house divided on that particular thing. But she's also a Zeta, so she's connected in the family as well, man. So,
right.
But no, I definitely appreciate it. I appreciate you, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Sure. Thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Historically Black Sense. All things HBCU and D9 organization affiliated, man. Tune in next time. Thank y'all.
Go Mob.
Go Mob.